Hello and welcome to another video. So, last time, I guess, was technically Life Isn't a Fairy Tale. I didn't mention that at the end of the last video of Gruvia one-shots by smilingsky. That technically the next fanfiction would be Life Isn't a Fairy Tale again, because it's a very long, very long story. But yeah. So we are still continuing on with this because obviously we only did the first chapter and we're not doing the second chapter. Again, you can read that if you want, because like always the link to the story will be in the description. But yeah, so I really should have more faith in my mic, because I'll tell you that I have 3 fans blowing in this room. 2 of them periodically, actually maybe only one of them periodically, having the angles to where it could hit the mic. I did preemptively turn one of my fans away that would have been oscillating directly into the mic, and that probably wouldn't have worked out too well, especially since it's like 2 feet away from the mic, and just blowing wind directly into it probably wouldn't have been very good. But yeah, so the sound quality was about as good as it could be. But yeah, so maybe we can read a couple of chapters in this. I don't know exactly what we can get done. If we can somehow manage to get like the rest of these chapters, or the rest of these one-shots, I guess, which a couple of them are, I mean, this one's supposed to be a 2-parter, but they haven't made it, and I don't know if they will. But, you know, the 1-shots or 2-shots or whatever, maybe we can get like half of this done in this video and then half done the next one, because I would like to not do too many videos on this. I could also probably just like pick a stopping point at some point and just be like, you know, if you want to read it, then, you know, you can read these, or maybe I'll come back to it at a different time. I don't know. Anyways, so last time, after Selfish Juvia and the insane story that was just there, oh boy, I don't even know what to say. We're gonna read this, which is not the same as far as I know. It says some nice angst, which is always my favorite. It's not, but yeah, we're gonna read it anyways because I've read this before, and obviously said that I wanted to read it for a video. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I barely pay attention to like half of these stories, and I just read through them, and it's like, oh well, just read through them and forget that there's chapters like that in there, and it's just like, no, we can't read that one. But anyways, let's just begin with Attention. Great song, by the way. Probably underrated. I don't know necessarily by who, but it's very, very good. Okay. Rain pattered down heavily against the concrete floor. Dark clouds clumped together, refusing to dissipate to show the clear skies. 2 souls standing in the middle of the market square at that particular town, nothing but shop houses surrounding them. Due to the sudden change in weather, many on the streets had ran off to find shelter, not in the least bothered about the 2 remaining out in the open rain. Not the ones standing under it minded the rain. It was rain brought on by the Rain Woman herself. Her blue hair was wet and limp from the weather affected by her emotions, sapphire eyes bearing nothing but unspoken words as she stared into the cold eyes of the raven-haired ice mage in front of her. The dark blue sleeveless dress was soaked thoroughly, sticking to her body like a second skin and outlining each and every curves as if it hadn't been when it was dry. It was not helping one bit, especially with the cold the brunette felt. Such a weird word, but people use it so often in the fairy tale fanfictions. If she took a step, she'd feel her feet squish in her silver sparkly heels. She wasn't supposed to get herself drenched like this, but she has had enough. It was supposed to be a pleasant evening she should have spent at a party hosted by a client, yet here she was, waiting for answers from this man she fussed over a few months back. The sky was getting darker by the minute, and the only lighting that let them see each other was the lampposts surrounding the area where they stood. She was with Leon at... How do you say that? I still don't know. I should probably look, but I might do it in between, because whatever. She was with Leon, as she had been for weeks, having confessing... God, the grammar is hurting my brain. Having confessed to Gray directly, getting rejected harshly, and perhaps a dozen crying sessions involving tubs of ice cream and boxes of tissues. Gruvia stopped chasing after Gray. There was no reason to, as she always told herself. As much as it hurts, she had to move on, which was what she has been trying to do until Gray keeps appearing wherever she goes, especially when she decides to go on dates with other men. Why is Gray she caught herself, taking a deep breath when she closed her eyes, telling herself to breathe. Why are you here? She asked upon reopening her eyes to look at him. As mentioned, she has had enough. Seeing Gray everywhere she was, it was annoying. It was uncomfortable. It was something she wanted before. It was something she didn't want now. Gray winced on the inside. See, the sweet girl who used to call him affectionately Gray-sama corrected herself, no longer using her third-person speech in him. It showed how willing and determined she was to forget that unrequited love she went after. You dragged me here, was a stupid reply, and he wished he could slap himself for not forgoing his damn pride. What was with him in avoiding things like feelings? Scoffing, Gruvia almost rolled her eyes but resisted. You know what I'm actually asking, Gray. I've seen you everywhere and you don't dare argue because we've met eyes every single time you followed me somewhere. Once was a coincidence, 2 was just by luck, 3 times. Now we're in the same area for a mission. Or 3 times we were in the same area for a mission, but the 4th, 5th, 6th, and now 7th? She gave him a look which made the Ice Mage frown even more. Why was she bothered by him following her when she did the same before? He cleared his throat, ignoring her question. We're going back to the guild, he announced all of a sudden, reaching for her wrist, but she let it turn into water, leaving Gray to hold nothing but moisture in his palm from the water remnants. Jovi isn't moving. I came here with Leon-sama and won't be heading back to Magnolia till tomorrow afternoon. She folded her arms where her wrist reformed to its solid state, trying her best to keep that strong facade she had created for herself when she decided to stop being that clingy girl towards a man who wanted her gone. There were more, better men who wanted to love Gruvia and treat her like a queen, just like Leona's doing. She was one of the S-class mages back in Phantom Lord, and has become one of Fairy Tales after the last exam, along with Gajiel and Team Natsu, except for Lucy, who wasn't picked again for reasons. The water mage had a body that curved in the right places, a face with alluring cat-like eyes and pouty lips. She was definitely not short of suitors after doing more photo shoots for Sorcerer Weekly, much to the Ice Mage's dismay. Gray turned around. Gruvia, let's go, he said in annoyance. Feeling impatient and wanting to get this over with, Gruvia shook her head firmly. Gruvia isn't going anywhere with you. Who are you to say where I should go? He opened his mouth to argue, but Gruvia cut him off. Why are you here? Why are you everywhere I am? Why are you not staying away like you told me to 3 months ago? That hit a spot, a nerve. He froze. Oh, the irony. Staring at the cerulean-haired mage who stared at him with her eyes that seemed to draw him in. Yes, she was a stalker back then, but she wasn't the one who told him to stay away, yet continued to follow Gray everywhere. She wasn't the one who called him names and ignored his feelings, then proceeded to be somewhat possessive over her. Gruvia, I'm sorry, he started to apologize as he swiped a hand across his forehead, rainwater falling off of him before more took its place from the crying sky. Stop. Gray's eyes widened when he looked into hers. They were serious. They held nothing but sadness and unshed tears that glossed over her orbs. You rejected me, so why are you... She choked down a sob but held her ground. Why are you always in my head again? Gruvia wants to move on, but you're not letting me do that. She didn't bother wiping the tear that escaped. It didn't matter, since the rain was making the salty liquid from her eyes seem like it was just rainwater. Gruvia, Gray paused, trying to find the words. Gruvia, I want you. He grabbed onto her hands, but instead of the hug he expected her to give him, screaming yes. Gruvia pulled away quickly. Don't touch me, were the words she shouted in her head, eyes turning into a glare at the man in front of her. Her drenched locks swung fiercely as she shook her head. No. What? He frowned. No. The Ice Mage couldn't understand. She was rejecting him now? What do you mean, No, Juvia will get over you. She took in a deep breath, her chest heaving upwards before dropping quickly. Juvia, no. Juvia, no, I have someone who loves me now. I have someone who accepts my affections for him, and he loves it. I have someone who loves me for what I do. I have someone who keeps waiting even if he knows my heart still hurts because of another. But I will give that man everything he deserves, for I will love him. If not now, but in the future. I know that one day I'll give in to those deep green eyes of his that never seem to stop loving me, she said, eyes showing determination overshadowing the hurt she held before. Goodness. Speak of the devil. The man with the green eyes appeared, and it was no surprise to who Gray thought it was. That man was the one who Juvia has been going out with for the past few weeks. Juvia held a white umbrella over her silver-colored hair, dressed in dark blue, almost black suit with leather shoes. He ran over to the two who were in the rain, covering the lady with the umbrella. Gray, what are you two doing here? He asked a redundant question since he knew, not bothering to wait for an answer. He turned to Juvia. Sweetheart, you're drenched. Liam pulled out the silk handkerchief sitting in his breast pocket and began drying her face. A sympathetic look in his eyes that only Juvia can see from where they stood together. He had known of Gray's presence whenever he was with Juvia at a party or on a date. Juvia had told him as well. But as mentioned, today was where she drew a line and he let her deal with it. Let's get you inside. You'll catch a cold. Juvia turned to Gray, who was just in shock at the two. He had thought she was using Leon to get over him the whole time. Her earlier words finally settled in his mind. This is the man I choose to love for the rest of my life, she pointed to Leon, who only smiled at the girl in his arms. I'm still Fairy Tale's mage, but eventually I'll have a new family to return to. Jeez. He stared blankly, watching Juvia turn her back against him. Leon surprisingly held an empathetic look towards his fellow pupil before grinning to the lady next to him, whispering something in her ear. He saw her shake her head, a soft smile on her lips to face Leon, and the two disappeared down the street, back to the hotel where Gray had found them at, for sure. That smile that used to be directed at him, that was used to comfort him. That was shown when she was grateful to just see him arrive at the guild. That smile wasn't for Gray anymore. Oh, this chapter's a lot longer than I thought it would be. Oh, goodness. Okay. We definitely gonna have to say just a big old no on finishing the story, probably. I don't know. We'll see how I feel in future episodes of this, but I'm definitely going to read at least a little bit more. Obviously, we're going to finish this chapter, but after that, we will see. Jeez. You know how hot it is. I'm sorry I'm not currently reading, but just, I hate how hot it is right now. You know, you think of Minnesota as being cold. In the summer, it's definitely not. Ugh. Invest in cheaper air conditioning. We need it. Okay, let's continue on with the story. I'm done with my tangent. His eyes followed the brunette as she moves around the hotel suite busily, whipping up something for the two of them after changing out of that dress into one of his shirts and her shorts that were covered up by the length of the shirt over her. Jeez, that nice run-on sentence there. A soft grin settled on his lips. He got up, only wearing white sweatpants that reached his knees. Sure. Leon wrapped his arms around her small waist, frowning a little when she tensed. However, it only lasted for a second as she immediately relaxed in its hold, making the man smile. Her hands continued moving, stirring the pasta sauce that was simmering away, the smell making the ice made his mouth water. "It smells good," he mumbles into her neck, warm breath tickling the sensitive area that he was starting to nibble on. "Tastes wonderful." Letting out a small moan and a giggle, she pushes his head away so she can look at him from the side, so she could focus on the pan in front of her. "You talking about the food or Gruvia?" Good God. Leon smirked, twisting her hip slightly-ish so she turned to face him. "You are what satisfies my hunger," his eyes darkening slightly when she bit her lower lip and blushed. He loved it when she could still blush even after all the intimacy they shared. Oh boy. Not sure I wanna continue this story. Oh boy. Okay. He was about to pull her into a kiss when she turned back to the busy stove, turning off the boiling pasta. Even though she seemed normal, Leon knew his girlfriend enough to know that she's not feeling alright after that encounter from earlier. He didn't miss the sadness that flashed through her eyes, even if it was for a split second. Oh my god, this story is ridiculous. It's so long. She always had this faraway look after the encounters. Today was the first time she went towards Gray and confronted him directly. She didn't zone out, but she seemed off. Leon went to set up a movie with the movie locker room they rented from the hotel, while Gruvia plated their dinner, bringing it to the coffee table. She never liked to order takeout or room service, preferring to cook instead, something about it being healthier. I guess. Leon didn't mind. He liked it even. Gruvia's cooking was one of the best he had ever tasted, always making sure to book a hotel room with a kitchen so she could make their meals, unless they were too beat up from a mission or work-related functions unlike the party they had attended earlier. Gruvia would make it a plan to whip something up. "This is delicious," the man exclaimed, red sauce over his lips as he ate messily, manners long forgotten upon tasting Gruvia's divine cooking. She chuckled. "Gruvia's glad you liked it. Is one of the new recipes she's trying," she comments, telling him about the new cookbook she bought that day. He listened intently, watching her cerulean eyes shine. He was almost sure she would be a restaurant owner if she wasn't a mage. "Look at you, Leon. Your lips are all messy." She gets up with a napkin while Leon tried to clean up himself. "I feel like a child," he chuckled when she was done with the napkin. She only giggled in response and placed the napkin down. Upon seeing Gruvia's portion, barely touched after a moment of silence between them. The smile on her face completely gone as she stared blankly at the plate of food. Hey," Leon shuffled next to her, ignoring the movie that was just there for background noise. Yep. That's, happens a lot. Just a movie in the background. Just for background noise. "What is it? What's wrong, Juve?" The water wizard's stomach curled a little at his endearment for her, in a good way and a bad way. She wanted to shake her head and tell him everything was fine, so she wouldn't end up crying and flooding the place again like she did when she saw him that day. The day she was rejected. Letting her eyes drop to the carpeted floor, she opens her mouth to make some kind of lame excuse, but Leon lifted her head up with his finger on her chin, looking at her with those pleading eyes that made her trust him so much. Tears glossed her eyes, a stray one falling without her permission. "Juve," she cleans it away quickly. "Sorry," her voice cracked, failing her resolve to not cry. Her hands flew up immediately, pressing the bottom of her palms against her eyes as tears fell rapidly. She gasped slightly, trying to pace her breathing to stop the crying, her lips curling down involuntarily as sobs tried to escape. Leon sets his plate on the coffee table, wrapping his arms around her, and pulled her into his lap. He hushed her, rubbing circles into her back as he hugged her. He could feel her. Oh, goodness. He could feel warmth pooling against his shirt. "Let it out, babe. Let it all out," he whispered, kissing the top of her head when he felt her shake, bringing a hand to caress the back of her head. It was almost a replay of that sorrowful day after that horrible confession. The day before was bright and sunny, almost perfect to go on a hot summer date, or when it turned more cloudy in the late afternoon, it'd be perfect for her to confess. Not like she hadn't already, but Gruvia wanted an answer. Maybe she just wanted to be selfish for that one time again. Oh no. She wanted an answer for her own. She had been selfish when proclaiming her love and devotion for a certain black-haired man, following him around religiously and selflessly giving him everything so she could think of for love. She gave everything to him, and the only thing she wanted to be selfish for is to love him. She was selfish by loving someone who perhaps didn't return her affection or even wanted them. It hurt to think about, but maybe she could try. She could try and be selfish once more. For an answer for herself, she was no longer that 17-year-old. She was turning 20 for Maeva's sake. She had to do something. She snapped out of her thoughts when she spotted her beloved. Gray-sama. He gave something like a groan in response before she ran over to him, almost hugging him, but she didn't this time, keeping her arms next to hers. She was sure she saw him look disappointed when she didn't hug him, but maybe that was her delusions happening again. Do you have time later, Gray-sama? I don't know, he asked, walking past her towards the bar where she stopped him. Is this like... Are we in a flashback right now? Can we, like... Okay. I mean, I guess it works not to make it clear, but whatever. Juvia grinned. Well, she fiddles with her hand shyly, and Gray feared that she wanted to ask him on a date again. Juvia prepared something for Gray-sama. Please meet her at the park at 7 p.m., she announces and disappears out of the guild's doors quickly, excitement in her face, leaving a confused and somewhat irritated Ice Mage behind. But he wasn't the only one who was listening to the Water Mage. Go get her, Gray. Man's gonna get laid. Ugh. I hate this so much. I don't, but getting laid is manly. Stop it, Elfman, Evergreen shouted and smacked the back of her husband's head. You're lucky, Gray. Cheers from the guild members erupted, but soon dissolved when Gray glared at them. Nothing's between me and Juvia. Stop cheering. A hand touched his bare back. When did he lose his shirt? He turned to see his childhood friend, Urza, and by the look on her face, he knew he'd either follow her or risk getting beat up resisting, so he chose the first option. They went upstairs to the open balcony, giving them enough privacy to talk about such matters. Don't hurt her feelings, Gray, was all she said the moment the door closed behind him. What? Don't mean idiot, Gray. You have a tendency to do so. He sighed, faced the view of the afternoon, sun beating down on Magnolia. Urza shook her head. Like I've said before, I'm in not much of a position to tell you so. But Juvia's a nice girl. Don't break her. She told him before leaving the balcony where the Ice Mage stood there half naked, his mind running with thoughts, all reaching a blank. That was his story, like halfway over. Oh my goodness. Gray-sama, the familiar voice of the Water Mage behind him. It was already evening and the sun was setting. A serene background that at that timing which Juvia planned so it'll be romantic. Named Male grunted a reply, dressed in his usual white coat and pants, Juvia in her usual long-sleeved dress. She was holding a small pink box shaped like a heart with red ribbons binding the lid closed. Her eyes shone with admiration with the mere action of him looking at her. Anything he did was perfect in her as her orbs. He was the man who brought clear skies to her after all, the man who saved her life. What did you want me here for, Juvia? He finally asked when her staring had started to make him uncomfortable. Snapping out of her trance, Juvia blinked rapidly, her lips forming an O. The question setting in her head, she smiled brightly, holding out the box to him. This is for Gray-sama. She then proceeded to shove it into his hands. She was rough, she had to admit, but she was nervous too, even if it didn't show right then. Once her hands were empty, she began to fidget with them. Picking up her courage, her naive mind telling her that everything will be alright, even if he didn't accept her confession, she parted her lips to speak. Juvia really likes Gray-sama, she almost mumbled, her voice soft and quiet, making the man strain his hearing. What? Gray-sama is the man who let Juvia see the clear skies. He allowed her to be in the open skies without having to hold an umbrella over her head. The first time Juvia saw Gray-sama, her heart raced so quickly before our fight. Juvia thought she was crazy. But then Juvia realized it was perhaps a small infatuation. She paused, but as we fought, Juvia fell for you harder, if that was possible. The kindness Grey-sama showed her, just like the kindness Fairy Tail had shown. Juvia felt warmth. Juvia likes being with you, Grey-sama. Juvia asked you out today. She was stopped from finishing her confession by Grey dropping her gift on the ground. The lid split apart. From the box, the contents spilling out. Snowflake-shaped cookies. At least they looked like snowflakes before he dropped them. Don't, he all but said, a dark shadow covering his eyes. Oh, that's all right. Juvia made extras. I'll get them for you right now. She was about to bolt off in the direction of Fairy Hills. I said don't, his voice boomed, causing the brunette to freeze in her steps. She turned slowly to see the man of her dreams, but the look on his face made her flinch. A few moments of silence took its place before Juvia spoke. Okay. Nothing is okay, he shouted, making the girl wince. Her eyes began to burn with unshed tears. But why is Grey-sama... Just shut up. Why can't you be quiet? Why do you always have to do things that'll make me uncomfortable? What was the whole point of today? Telling me things that don't matter. The look of regret flashed in his eyes when he realized that his words were making her teary. Dark clouds were beginning to gather. She faced the ground, head hanging low as she tried to gather her words. They do matter to Juvia. Juvia just wanted an answer, she mumbled quietly. She thought that if Grey-sama rejects her, it'll be okay. Juvia will continue loving Grey-sama because Juvia lives for that. Stop, just stop. None of this is okay. You following me around, you being jealous over people like Lucy when she talks to me, it's not okay. You can't just say you love me. That's crazy. He was focused on shouting out his anger that he missed the tear that fell first on the ground. I'm not some kind of toy that you just use to fill up the void of not being loved. Ugh. That hit a nerve as Juvia struggled to hold in a sob. Why do his words have to hurt so much? Just leave me alone, Juvia, he said quietly. Stay away from me. So I told her, walking off in the opposite direction where she had came from. So there she was, a crumbled mess on the ground as rain began to pelt down like bullets against the concrete ground. Her clothes getting soaked by the minute, hair drenched by the second. She didn't know how long she sat there crying until she stopped. All she knew was the park was emptying of people due to her gloomy rain returning to haunt her. The rain had taken away everything. Maybe this time, she prayed, it'll take her pain with it. Take all her pain with it. Maybe it was an hour or two later that someone had asked if she was okay, and that someone escorted her to Fairy Hills. He was on his way to visit Fairy Tail, but had heard that she would be at the park that evening. Juvia, we're here. He looked at the girl whose face seemed blank of any expression. If it wasn't for her swollen eyes, he would have thought that perhaps she just missed seeing Grey at the guild and was unhappy. She turned to him, bowing her head as if to say a silent thanks before she took slow steps into the dorm. Just as she opened the door, Leon called out to her. The brunette turned, staring blankly at him. Do you want to talk about it? She shook her head and disappeared behind the wooden door. Jeez, a full story. Oh my goodness. Oh. You know, if there's one thing that happens quite a lot in at least like the more like angsty Gruvia stories where it's like it happens a lot where it's like Grey just shouts a bunch of things he doesn't actually mean at Juvia because he is like the most tsundere character ever. Yeah, is there anything that I'll say and like maybe I'll make some sort of video about it later, but Fairy Tail is the anime of anime stereotypes, where it's like literally every single stereotype is shown in this anime and like made fun of essentially just by how ridiculous they make it. At least that's my opinion on it. But like, yeah, although a lot of it comes out in like fanfiction, which doesn't count as canon. So yeah. Although what I should do, if there's anything that I should do, is actually finish watching Fairy Tail, which I might try to do soon, just because, like, yeah, I really should try to do that soon, just because I need to finish it. If there's nothing else I should do, is just finish Fairy Tail. Oh, why haven't I done it? I don't know. Well, the problem for me is that it's not going to end how I think it should end. Or it's going to end with some things that are not going to be in there. This is just like me just talking about random stuff now. I was about to say, like, I just need to watch more anime, just in general. Like, I need to watch just so much more. Because I just don't watch enough. Watch too much YouTube. Okay, let's try to finish the story so I can move on, I guess. Jesus. The next day, Julie didn't turn up at the guild and Leon was worried. He had brawled with his fellow pupil earlier when he saw him come in, asking Gray if he did something to hurt his precious Juvia-chan. Ignoring the silver-haired man, Gray merely answered that he rejected her and walked to the bar when he got punched in the face. Urza entered the guild with a dark expression on her face, her glare directed at the raven-haired man. "Gray Fullmuster," she roared, voice booming through the place. "What did you do?" She headed straight to the target, grabbed him by the neck since he had forsaken his shirt. The whole guild now had their attention on him. "What are you talking about?" He was cut off when the red-haired woman punched him in the face. She was seething. Why wouldn't she be? She told him not to hurt the girl, and instead she had the blue net locking herself in a room for the whole entire morning. Until the re-equipped mage decided not to wait anymore. She knocked down the door, worried for her comrade who bore swollen eyes. The water mage told her what happened after much persuasion from Urza. It didn't help that it was pouring cats and dogs outside the guild. Wincing as he caressed his sore face, he glared at Urza. "I rejected her. Is that wrong?" "It isn't wrong to reject her, but it's what you said to reject her, you idiot," she yelled at him, releasing her hold on him. Mumbles came from the onlookers. Even Natsu, who was usually noisy, was quiet and listening to the two. Leon pushed past the guild members, water dripping from his hair as he didn't take an umbrella as he traveled in the rain. "What exactly did you say?" His tone calm, yet a warning tone laced behind it. "It's none of your business, Leon." "It is my business if I was the one who saw Juvia crying yesterday," he gritted through his teeth. "Look, I don't see why this is a big deal. I just told her to stop loving me and to stay away. Is that so wrong?" Gray threw his hands up in frustration. "I had enough of her fussing around me this whole time. Why should it matter?" He was stopped from saying another word with a fist thrown in his face. Not by Urza this time, but by the Dragon Slayer, who knew Juvia the moment she stepped into the once guild Phantom Lord years ago. "You bastard," he seethed, unable to continue listening to the excuses of the Ice Mage. "It matters because Juvia has feelings. She's not someone who's only crazy about some man who doesn't give a fuck about what she thinks. She may have seemed like a silly girl in love, but she's human too." He wanted to punch him again, but was held back by Levy as she rubbed circles into his palm after she grabbed his hand. "The silly girl said she just wanted an answer. It doesn't matter if her Grey Summer rejected her. She just wanted closure, you ignorant asshole." He spat and walked away. Jeez. The guild was then left in quiet mumbles as they tried to look away from the glaring raven-haired ice mage who threw himself at one of the empty tables, ordering a few drinks to drown his mind. Leon, who didn't say another word to his fellow people, walked out of the guild after throwing one last look at Gray, choosing to prioritize Juvia over picking a fight with a man he thought as a brother. A figure huddled in the corner of the room, her slender arms wrapped around her knees, which she hugged closely. The room was silent and peaceful, except for the thunder and rain sounds entering the room from the window where Juvia sat near, watching the leaves on the trees sway furiously against the wind like she had been doing the whole morning. She only got up to use the bathroom and drink water before sitting back in that corner. Her mind was blank, choosing not to think about anything. If she didn't think, it wouldn't hurt as much. At least that's what she thought. She didn't move when there was a knock on the door, just like she didn't in the morning when Urza chose to knock it down before fixing it back when she left for the guild. Juvia-chan, it's me. Would you please open the door? Leon's voice traveled across the wooden door. Juvia didn't answer, continuing to stare out the window before hiding her face in her arms. Why couldn't they just leave her alone? It's not enough that Gray rejected her and called her annoying. Was it necessary to come and repeat their concerns? The words he said replaying each time. Lucy came over, Levy came over, heck, even Alcoholic Kana came and asked how it went, having not witnessed how Urza, she was the first to knock in the morning, being the most excited about the couple's progress, made a fuss. She really just wants to be alone. Juvia-chan, please, he begged, knocking on the door once more. Juvia shook her head, feeling hot tears fall on her thighs. Go away, please, she whispered, knowing he couldn't hear, but she was too tired to shout it. I'll wait outside until you're ready to talk, okay, he said softly and leaned against the door, sighing loudly. He wasn't serious, was he? Juvia wondered, but couldn't be more bothered. He was probably joking. Everyone who said they'll stay always left. Everyone who said they'll wait for Juvia always left. Everyone who said they could handle her rain left. What was the difference now? Juvia only brought gloominess everywhere. When she could finally see the clear skies, the source of that wanted her to leave. What was the difference? Hours pass and the rain has lightened up slightly. No more thunder nor lightning, but water still pattered down on the pavement. Her stomach growled from missing both lunch and breakfast. She was about to get up and change so she could buy some food, not in the mood to cook when she heard a sneeze. It wasn't from her, but outside her dorm. It couldn't be, she thought to herself, walking over the door. Juvia held back a gasp when she opened the door. Leon fell back with a thud, wincing at the dull ache where his head met the floor. Leon-sama, she rushed to his aid. Juvia is so sorry. Are you alright? She bent down, unsure of where to hold or help him. He pushed himself on the floor, a smile on his lips. You finally opened the door, he grinned, rubbing the sore area with his hand. I feel alright, just a bump. Juvia's cheeks reddened. You hit your head, and all you think about is Juvia opening the door. Are you sure you're okay? She asked innocently, though the sentence would have came out sassier if she wanted. Leon shook his head. I was very worried about you this morning. He cut at the part where Urza had gone to the guild demanding an answer from Gray, knowing it'll upset the rain woman. Well, as you can see, she gestured to herself, no longer donning her usual dress, but in a white tank top with a blue cardigan over it, matched with a pair of shorts that was a shade lighter than her outerwear. A blue knitted beanie sat above her hair that she didn't bother to tame. Juvia's fine. She was caught up by the growling of her stomach, her cheeks flushed. And hungry, she muttered, feeling embarrassed. An amused look came from Leon, who stood up and offered her hand. Come on, my lady, yours truly will take you to a restaurant to fill your belly, he announced, imitating royalty. Juvia couldn't help but break a small smile. As they walked down Fairy Hills, Juvia couldn't help but ask, Leon-sama, you know the restaurants here in Magnolia? Her eyes widened in surprise. That's when Leon realized something. No, he did not know the restaurants here in Magnolia. He only went into one of the inns and ate there out of convenience. The good restaurants he knew were in Crocus and the ones around Lamia Scale. He felt his face heat up slightly. I'll find something for us, he stuttered all of a sudden. Juvia giggled slightly, grabbing him by the wrist. Come on, Juvia will take you to her favorite place to eat. They sell good food for cheap jewels. Leon smiled as his goddess dragged him into town, happy to see that she wasn't crying anymore. The smile and the giggles coming from her was an indication that the tears had stopped for the meantime. He would have to try and fix her broken heart later. Right now, a temporary distraction from the pain would be good for the lady, he decided. They're still going. Goodness gracious. How is it? The brunette asked, eyes peering at the man sitting opposite him in a booth as he took a bite of the cheeseburger she recommended to him. It was a small diner located a bit further from Fairy Tale and the dorms itself, but whenever Juvia had the chance to come here after a mission, she would make it a point to dine here. Leon swallowed whatever he was chewing, eyes wide in delight. It tastes like heaven. A small giggle erupted from the rain woman as she picked up her own burger, the melted cheese dripping down the meat patties looking absolutely tempting. Juvia's glad then, she says with a smile before chomping down on the unhealthy meal. She looked up at Leon, who was staring at her when she noticed something at the corner of his lips. Leon-sama, you have a little, she pointed, but the ice mage kept missing the spot. Juvia placed her food down and grabbed a napkin, leaning over the table to clean it for him. Leon flushed slightly. Thanks. They ate in comfortable silence after that, and Leo noticed that Gruvia kept looking out the window where light rain drizzled the streets. Her eyes filled with unspoken words whenever someone in the open cursed the gloomy weather. Once they finished their meals, Leo waited for Gruvia, gauging if she was ready to talk when she hid her sadness with a bright smile. Do you want to try their chocolate cake? Gruvia absolutely loves the chocolate cake they have here. Before he could answer, she raised a hand and ordered 2 slices of the mentioned dessert. Leon chuckled and told the waitress they'll have it to go, deciding that he needed to walk off the burger meal before eating dessert. On their way back, Gruvia prompted Leon to tell her about what he had done recently, wanting to catch up on his life after a long period of no contact. He told her about the long missions he went on and is currently taking a break to make up for it. Gruvia will get the plates. Make yourself at home, Leon-sama, Gruvia told him as she disappeared into the kitchen as soon as she opened the door. Leon walked into the living room where the black trash bag was filled so full that the bag was close to tearing. Gruvia came out with a tray that held 2 plates of their cake and also 2 teacups filled with a floral-scented drink. Gruvia thought the rose tea she bought might go well with the cake. She smiled, placing the tray down. As she grabbed her plate to dig in, Leon asked her a question. What's that bag over there? His green eyes held curiosity, not knowing the incidents that happened last night the moment she entered her room. Gruvia placed her plate down, not answering him, which made Leon thought he had crossed the line he didn't know about. Sorry, you don't have to tell me. Gruvia shook her head. It's all the dolls and towels I had. She paused, not wanting to look at Leon when she tells him what dolls they were. She didn't need another person telling her she was crazy. Dolls that resemble Gray-sama. Gray, she shrugged, biting her bottom lip, I guess, while her eyes trained on the ground to rain in those tears of hers. When Lana didn't speak, she winced, thinking that he was repulsed by her obsession like Gray was. If you're going to call Gruvia crazy, Gruvia would suggest you leave, she said coldly. Who said I was going to do that? She looked up to see Leon staring at her, green pouring into her glossy blue eyes. I was just thinking if there was a way to get rid of them permanently, since you seem to want to throw them away. He tells her, a small smile on his face before he frowned. Did Gray say you were crazy? There, the waterworks broke. Gruvia. Leon went closer to her on the couch, wrapping his arms around her as he shushed her. Sorry, I didn't mean, he started to apologize, but felt her shaking her head. She pulled away, pressing her hands against her eyes. It's not your fault. She took in a deep breath, trying to calm her shaky voice when Leon grabbed one of her hands, holding it tightly. You don't have to tell me. I just want you to know, Gruvia, if you need someone to listen, I'll be right here, he told her sincerely. After a few minutes of calming down, Gruvia told him about how everything went down the previous day. It took all her might to stop the Ice Mage from jumping off her window to get to Fairy Tale faster so he could hit Gray for saying those hurtful words. Gray's about to get beat up several times. Oh, come on. What is this? He reluctantly agreed, choosing to comfort her with his presence and watching the unstable weather pour heavily once again. He asked her where the nearest grocery store was and told her he would be back in a while. Gruvia refused to let him go, worried that he would go after Gray when he assured her that he just needed to go grab something from the store. When he returned, he had 2 bags in his hands, both filled with movie lacrimos, tubs of ice cream, and perhaps boxes of tissues. That was not why Gruvia was shocked when he entered the dorm. You're drenched. She grabbed a towel from her room and handed it to Leon. He chuckled. I kind of forgot to borrow an umbrella, but hey, I got you movies and ice cream to watch. Are you watching the ice cream? He winked at her, lifting up the stuff he got for her. Her lips were parted as she stared at the man who simply chuckled at being in her reign to bring her things to comfort her, even if she didn't ask him to do so. Without her realizing, the rain outside became lighter. It didn't clear up to show the clear sky she loved. Slowly but surely, the clouds were clearing up as time passed. Goodness. Oh. Each day passed, and Leon came over frequently, often going into Fairy Tale to ask Gruvia out. Gray only watched from the bar as the water mage beamed a positive answer to his once fellow pupil before they left the place. Regretting your decisions, Gray? Mira asked, the usual sweet smile on her face gone as she spoke to him. As she heard what he said to Gruvia, he deserved his treatment for a while. She placed his mug of beer on the table and folded her arms over her chest. Gray shrugged, choosing not to answer by denying or ascertaining her question. He wouldn't admit it, but there was a bitter feel in his mouth ever since he rejected Gruvia, especially the harsh words he used on her. He wasn't sure why he did what he did until he realized too late. He had liked her back, yet his stupid pride wasn't relenting. He was denying his feelings. He didn't want her to get too close. He wanted her to stay away. All too focused on that goal to realize that he was doing something that can't be undone with a simple, charismatic smile, he had pushed her over the edge where another Prince Charming was to catch her. One day he had decided to follow them whenever Leon asked her out in the guild. Maybe she would come to her senses when she sees him, realize that she still loves her Grayson, but ditch Leon and he'll confess and apologize. Simple and easy. Attention, that's what he'll do. Get her attention. Jeez. Apparently actually based on the song. They did mention at the beginning. Oh boy. That's a lot. So after a stupid long video, we'll see what we do. In all likelihood, because the super long stories are not going to be read as much anymore, just because I have a ton of stuff to go through, and unless someone really wants me to finish reading something, then I'm probably not going to do it, but I'm at least going to do a significant amount of it. Although if I am reading it for the first time, I will definitely finish the whole thing, assuming that it's good enough and I actually want to finish it. But if I've read it before like this, then it'll probably be just me reading some of it, and then if you want to see the rest of it, you can follow the link in the description and see, look for it. And yeah, but there'll probably be at least one more part of this. I think we'll probably do nightmares, and then depending on how long this is, we'll probably do Halloween, because I don't really want to start a two-parter thing. Who knows what we'll do after that? Obviously, I'll decide in the next episode. But good God, that was such a long story, and I don't even know what to say. My voice is gone. My throat hurts. And that's going to be it for today. I can't even continue this because, oh my God. Yeah. So next time will be another, and I think it's the last part of Life Isn't a Fairy Tale, maybe? It is, in fact, the last part of Life Isn't a Fairy Tale. And then after that, we will come back with more Gruvia one-shots, starting with Nightmares. Again, by smilingsky. Again, help the people who really need it. And yeah. Oh boy. This is a long video. It's going to take forever to upload. Boy.